There you go. Okay.
Alright.
You can actually hear me like perform as we're actually doing a Khaiza Dojo.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. Yes, sir.
yes, sir. Alright, so what's up, my guys? It's the Khaiza. I am back for another Khaiza Dojo, right? And this Khaiza Dojo is going to be a little bit special because we got a special guest, and it's my boy, everyone's boy, Eskateerr, Eric Eskateerr. What's up, Eskateerr?
What's up, man?
What's up? Oh my god, we actually got like a good guest over here. Oh my god, what's up? For those that don't know, introduce yourself, Eskateerr. What do you do? Who are you? What do you like to do? What do you like to smash? All that stuff.
Well, I mean, I guess if I have to do an intro, I'm in law school. I'm also in graduate school for public policy.
hmm
Uh, I'm also a veteran. Also just somebody who just really likes to play fighting games. Right now, currently, I'm playing Dragon Ball Fighters and King of Fighters 15 on a more
A
competitive, like, I guess, outlook on things. But I mean, you know me, I'll play anything that's a fighting game.
play anything that's fighting, and that's mad respect. Yeah, we gotta have a lot of fighting game people, especially now with like new fighting games, new FGs like on the horizon with Tekken 8, potentially maybe like Mortal Kombat 12 on Game Awards. It's like
That's not potential. That's probably what's gonna happen.
that's probably what's gonna happen, right? Like, jeez, it's funny because like there's so many like FG like content creators that are like speculating that the Game Awards is like the time to shine for like FGs, whereas like historically, I always say FGs are not usually in the Game Awards, right? They're
Yeah,
more
that's the way I look at it too. Like they're usually not thought of in like game award settings.
yeah, exactly, which is like the polar opposite because that's like Jeff Keighley's show, and Jeff Keighley's all about like the Elden Rings, the God of War Ragnaroks, all the indie developer games that are out there, right? So having like fighting games in the Game Awards is like kind of like an antithesis, unless we're talking about Smash Brothers or Mortal Kombat, which those are historically have been seen in trailers and whatnot.
I think that might be probably because like the Game Awards is and correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's more seen as like an American, like geared towards like an American audience, because
Oh
they
yeah.
really like award shows and stuff. Like I had an ex that really liked award shows for some reason.
Yeah, I think it's more like I chalk it up to like how popular and how much of a name brand those like titles are specifically for the
Yeah,
Game Awards. Like they have so much more like value and like impact to like not just like American kids but all around, you know?
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. But yeah, we got like Eskateerr over here. We're gonna be talking about a Khaiza Dojo video, but I wish it would have been on like a happier circumstance because at the time of this like recording today, we just lost another like hero from a tragedy story. For those that don't know, our boy Tommy Oliver, aka Jason David Frank, has like passed away, right? And it was a very grim like shock. Like I opened like I first saw this news when I like opened up Twitter, and then I saw Jason David Frank. I'm like, okay, what is he doing? Like I thought it was gonna be like a Jason David Frank appreciation poster, like something like that,
Yeah,
something
yeah,
treading like that. And then I look into it more and more. Then I see like, oh my god, man, that's like my literal raw reaction. Like it was just
yeah,
yeah, like damn man. As much
yeah.
because yeah, guys, I'm a very super like hardcore Power Rangers fan. Like back when I was like young and like my very first vivid memory of like Power Rangers was just like the second OG crew, not the first one with Austin St. John, the original Yellow Ranger, and Zach, but the
You
second
talking about
crew.
the one with the White Ranger, right? Like when he
Yeah,
became the White Ranger. Yeah, yeah, I
when he
remember
became the
that.
White Ranger. I first saw the Power Rangers, well, not only as like a TV series, but also more iconically as through the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie with Ivan Ooze. I'm like, yo, damn, this movie is kind of cool. But then, like, speaking of like a movie itself, like off topic, like the movie's kind of like, ugh. It's like,
Yeah, like I was a kid at the time, so like I remember when the movie came out, I was like, all right, this is probably good time to stop watching Power Rangers right now.
Yeah, and like I just continued like the Power Rangers train because I love this shit. Like all of this shit like in my background, all the Power
Yeah.
Rangers toys and everything, all the like all like the posters and like whatnot. So it's like, oh my god, I love Power Rangers like to death. Like, and now I'm like collecting like Power Rangers toys because I buy them with like my salary money I get from my work, and then my mom like screams at me like, "Oh my god, Farhan, why are you buying $90 for a toy, Farhan? You gotta spend something a little bit more, not authentic, but more useful with your money." But I'm like, Mom, it's so cool. I can't help it.
I always spin it. I've been doing it since I was a kid. I was always spin it to my parents. I was like, this is big. Maybe when I get older, like I can sell it. And they're like, maybe, or maybe we'll throw it out.
Or maybe we'll throw it out, right? That's literally like the same thing when I like threw out like not like I threw out my maybe my like my GameCube and my Wii because I wish I could have kept those shits, but then I regret it. Like I gave like my PS2 to one of my like dad's colleagues who was a student at the time, and I was like, that's a good cause, but I'm like, man, I wish I had my PS2 back.
I did the same with some GameCube games. Like I kept the GameCube, but I was like, I got too many games, so I gave some of them to like my cousin, and I'm pretty sure he does not have those anymore. He probably sold them for like tickets to something. I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, back to like the original one because yeah, Jason David Frank, he like passed away and was later reported on like TMZ that it was later reported as a suicide, right? He was suffering from cases of like depression and like almost like mental anxiety, and it's like, yeah, that's it's sad to hear like
it's even sadder to know that like because like somebody commented like on a post of mine that like apparently his daughter had committed suicide too like a year earlier before that. So
his daughter committed suicide. Oh my god.
Yes, I mean you'd have to double check, but that's what somebody had, like commented on one of my posts. So I think.
But like it's sad to hear, and it's like we lost like another like another Power Rangers like legendary actor from the ye old days. And like I've been talking around with other different Power Rangers like servers on like Discord, right? Like he's not just like the face, right? He's not just like the PR man, but he is. Jason David Frank represents like an entire generation of us kids like growing up with Power Rangers. You may have heard Power Rangers back in the past, but like for those that really like care about like the community, Jason David Frank was like the soul, the spirit of Power Rangers, and it's sad to hear that like he's gone away. So rest in peace, the David Frank family. I hope you guys get better by like watching this as like Power Rangers fans. Me and Eskateerr ourselves, like we can only wish for you to like God, I can't like think of a proper like modest way, but it's like my speech. But hopefully you guys get better with David's like passing, and never forget like the lessons that he strived for. Yeah. And also like a momentary like silence for like Jason David Frank, as he is like yeah, that's Jason David Frank. He is the White Ranger, he is the Green Ranger, he is Lord Draken, he has built himself as like the like Power Ranger, man. And shout outs to like Jason David Frank. We couldn't have been like Power Rangers, we couldn't have the power without your help.
Also, to anybody who was a huge fan of Jason David Frank specifically, and they're taking this news like really hard, just know that there are a lot of resources out there. If you just wait like a couple moments, with your suicidal ideation, it can pass pretty quickly, and you can live to commemorate people who are no longer here anymore.
Exactly, right. And also to like add on to like that topic, which Eskateerr said that and I might have like teased it before, depression is a real like nasty business, right? And depression can happen to like all of us, right? So, and Jason David Frank is like the subject of that, right? We may not know like the whole story behind it. We're not like his close friends or anything. We're not like his family, but he has been going through some shit, right? He may not have said it, right? Because of the macho like manness that we all have as we're like growing up. We're like men. We can't like talk about our feelings, but that gender is like changing like dynamically, right? We can't be like closed off and like, you know, close our hearts. We have to let ourselves, you know, open.
That's true. If you're struggling, just reach out to somebody. That's it. That's all you really have to do.
Just reach out to somebody, exactly. But yeah, to change. All right, so let's get on to some like Khaiza Dojo stuff. So we got our boy Eskateerr over here, and this is like the episode that I wanted to like come up with for our Khaiza Dojo, and I've been looking as inspiration from Eskateerr himself, and that you may know this, Eskateerr, but you have been like tweeting out about like playing random like fighting games on like your spare time, and you were specifically talking about Soul Calibur 6 story mode. And so this is where like our special Khaiza Dojo comes in. This is going to be a episode on fighting game stories, story modes, arcade ladders, cinematic stories, and you know what really makes like a fighting game story like the way it is, you know.
If I would have to guess, because I mean, when I was a kid growing up, and even until like recently, I didn't pay attention to any of those stories. I mean, that's just what you did, you know. But if I had to put like, you know, a couple of words to it, I would probably say you want your fighting game story to feel like it's like a shonen manga, not like a comic, because that's, you know, they feel differently, right? But you want a fighting game to have like a big bad boss that like a whole crew of people want to like get to and try to beat for some reason or another.
Right, yeah. And that's like where we're going with our first our subtopic of like fighting game stories is that, you know, yes, it's very good that like fighting games should be like, you know, a shonen manga like type of situation. And, you know, fighting games like historically have always like had like story, but they're always like behind lore, and the most like general story of a fighting game is locked behind character-specific arcade ladders.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people will tell you that too. They'll tell you like, if you really want to know the story, like you got to play each character, and it was designed that way. You know, like they wanted you to play the game as much as possible, and that meant having to try to play as many characters as much as possible.
Like if you want to know M. Bison's like specific ass hair color, you play Street Fighter story mode.
Yeah, and not everyone does that. I mean, I don't have the time. I would try like a kid, but like no one really does that, you know. Like usually someone picks a character that they're naturally good at, that they really like, and then they start playing from there.
Yeah, exactly. We pick like a specific character, and it's always like a trial. It's always like a tedious effort for like old school fighting games. I would even like call them like archaic. And even still now it continues to this day with like our current day fighting games, our current gen fighting games that we have to go.
I would honestly say it's kind of archaic.
Yeah, like the whole like arcade ladder, how a fighting game ladder goes through, guys, for those that don't know, is that you pick a character, right? Or you pick like a team in the instance of like a versus game or a KOF game. And then you go through like, at best, 8 fights. And the 7 to 8 fights are usually like sub-bosses or bosses. And the 6th fight is sometimes like a rival cutscene depending on the game. But you have to go through 8 different fights just to see a character-specific ending. And as what Eskateerr said, that's a lot of time. You can't like sit down for like 30 to 40 minutes find out like one thing. Like you have to find out like Ryu is a hobo. He shoots a fireball like in a waterfall, and then he comes back, and then in the Street Fighter like ending, he's still shooting waterfalls. Like what?
Or you have to go around and like you have to wait on people to like interview like the developers, you know, and they'll ask them like, because I was watching like Maximilian Dude's like his video on was it the somebody from Game Informer doing questions to Japanese developers.
The 100 rapid questions on Game Informer. Yeah,
and like you learned like a couple little things here and there, but like back in the day, that's basically how you learned a lot of lore. Is like you had to like get these gaming magazines, or you had to like just just browse around for as much lore as you could, you know.
Exactly. Some of like the lore tidbits are like behind like developer like interviews, or like if you order on like Amazon, for instance, they have like these like Udon Street Fighter like art books where they give like specific like details on like characters, and I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of like money being spent. Like you're not only like buying money, you're not only paying $60 for a fighting game, but you're also, if you want to like know nitty gritty about like all this like lore stuff, you also have to pay another $40 or possibly maybe $50 for like an art book that you may not like use in your lifetime, just to like read up on like a character like background or something like that.
And this is only considering like a console model's like business, like their business model, right? Like if you just play it on consoles, like back in the day, if you played in arcades, like, you know, you had to pay each time, right? Like you either had to pay like 25 cents or whatever currency people were using in your country at the time. So it's like, how much money are you going to put into this game just to find out a story, you know? Or do you want to just put in money to get, like beat up the locals that are around there?
Exactly, right. And on that like note alone, right, because, you know, that's a really good point that you bring up, Eskateerr, because like fighting games before like the console porting, they were originally like arcade machines, and you have to play like a fighting game with no knowledge at all by just like inputting like a 25-cent quarter on the arcade machine. And if you lose, and sometimes this can also happen, right, if you want to just go in and just play casually for like a fighting game like Character Story, you have to be blocked by the most randomest bullshit like a fighting game AI, and they will like prevent you from winning ever again. And
that's just the AI. Like, what about the other people who are playing you?
And what about the other people who are playing you? Yeah, it's especially more sinister when it comes to like old school like fighting game AI. Like me and Eskateerr are KOF boys, so we definitely understand like the atrocities that came with like fighting game AI. Oh my god. First KOF like Rugal. Oh my god.
I couldn't get past like a second match for like years.
Yeah.
It was just too hard, man. Like I was just like, how do people keep trying to do this?
Yeah. Bro, like I was doing a stream one time, and I was doing Street Fighter like Hyper Street Fighter 2 arcade on the Capcom Fighting Collection, right? And this was like me on like I was enjoying the Street Fighter 6 like news and all that stuff, and I just wanted to play Street Fighter 2, right? And I pop open the game and I like play like Hyper Street Fighter 2. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a good time. Why is the difficulty on like the two fights like super extra hard? Like, okay, Ken, I could get past, right? But DJ is like the scum of the earth, right? Like, fuck that guy, right? I don't know what happened.
Welcome back to the 90s, dude. Like, that's how it was.
Yeah, and then I actually found out like specifically from like the CPU like from the CPU like circuitry board behind like Hyper Street Fighter 2. Yeah, that was like an accidental bug that the Capcom USA did for like that version of Street Fighter 2, is that you can't get past the second fight in Arcade Ladder of Street Fighter 2. It's like, okay, yeah, so it's not just a me thing.
no, it's not just a you thing. That's just how it was, man. Like you just had to deal with it.
Yeah, it's just like I had to like deal with it, right? And so yeah, that's like the hard part about like fighting game like story modes. You know, sometimes like we had to go through lore, we had to go through lore through like the tiniest of like details. Sometimes we have to go through like AI. And you know, the other like thing about fighting game like lore is that even if we're like given like a lore, like let's say we'll use like Eskateerr's example for instance. He played like Soul Calibur 2. Like, what can you tell us about like the Soul Calibur like story mode, my boy?
Well, if I'm just going off of Soul Calibur 2, there's an evil sword. You have to break it. Fragments of it go to like different people. You have to beat them, and then you have to beat the sword.
And then you have to beat the sword. Yeah, it's just like. But I remember you like saying that. Was it like Soul Calibur 2 or was it Soul Calibur 6?
So 6, they reset the timeline. So yeah. Like I was reading a lot on like some of the lore for Soul Calibur because I was like, oh, I actually don't know anything about Soul Calibur. So let me just like go to the wiki and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. Apparently they just reset it. They just reset it.
They just reset it? Really? Wow.
Yeah. I think it was just like a storyline where like it got too big or something, and then all of a sudden, like, they just have to reset the timeline. And I think there's only like one character who actually remembers the original timeline. So it's like, one day I'll like go up on a little bit more on Soul Calibur lore, but like, if you're going straight from 6, I think that's why a lot of Soul Calibur fans probably like 6, because it has like a lot of the story elements from like the previous 5 into like one game. So you can kind of just you can like use it like as a refresher for Soul Calibur 6 for like the entire like lore for the entire Soul Calibur series. But the way they presented it like in 6, it was bad.
It was bad. Jeez. Yeah, I remember like Soul Calibur 6 like being stated as like a soft reboot to the franchise, and I didn't know it was like the main reason for like Soul Calibur 6 like being made just for like story elements. I thought it was more of just like old school characters coming back, because the last numbered Soul Calibur was 5, and all of Soul Calibur 5 was all of these like new gen kids, like daughters of Sophiada, like Pyron or like Patrolicus. Yeah, like
that's another thing I feel like people should address for like fighting games. Like a lot of these people who play fighting games, they want the old stuff and the new stuff, but not too much of the new stuff.
Yeah,
so make sure you bring back the old stuff for sure.
Exactly, right? It can like work at like in some cases, like Mortal Kombat X, for instance. Like they brought in like a fresh cast of like new kids, like the combat kids, all of like the daughters and the sons of like Cassie Cage, Sonya, and etc., right? And they played like really fresh, right? And then when Mortal Kombat 11 hit in, they just like took off like 2 characters, Takeda and Kung Jin, like my favorite like male like characters in that game. One more stylish than the other, but you know, it's cool to have like new kids or new gen, but like as you said, yeah, like keep it a fair like balance, you know.
And then you have Capcom, which, I mean, I love Street Fighter, but like I don't know if anybody actually knows the lore of Capcom except for like, you know, people who have been talking about Street Fighter for like decades now.
Oh yeah.
It's like all over. I mean, when they came out with Third Strike, you know, that was great, but like what came before Third Strike? You know, it's like Street Fighter 3, you know, I can't even remember the names of like the first 2 iterations of Third Strike. I just know it's Third Strike.
Yeah, thankfully Triple KO and all of like Maximilian underscore videos like educate me, so like the Street Fighter 3 series are only just like 3, which is the first one New Generation, the second one Second Impact, and then the third one is Third Strike.
Yeah, I forgot the names, so good thing you did. Yeah, it's just when the New Generations game came out, like they didn't even have Ryu, you know, like they didn't have like, the face of Street Fighter. So it's like, how are you supposed to like introduce new story elements to somebody when they can't even recognize the game for something like that it was previously? It's like, there's like an old Nintendo game it's not a fighting game, but it's called Street Fighter 2010 or something like that.
I know about that one. Yeah, like Ken is a future like fighter. He has like a gun and shit like that. I'm like, what?
that's not Street Fighter, dude. Like I mean, I'm sure it's a great beat 'em up game, but like that's not Street Fighter, dude.
Yeah, that's not Street Fighter. That's just like future Ken before he became like a hobo in Street Fighter 6, and he's just running around and just like shooting up bad guys and shit like that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and I feel like SNK tried, because you know, like their KOF like timeline is a little bit more consistent.
Oh, but, yeah, right.
But I mean, look at the lore. It's basically like, what's the next big world-breaking thing that's going to happen now that we have to all stop?
Yeah, and if you guys are interested in KOF lore, there is a lovely like video series by I think like Neo Geo Now on YouTube.
Yeah, Neo Geo Now.
Yeah, and he does like KOF retrospectives on like the 3 main sagas of KOF: the Orochi Saga, the Ness Saga, and the what was it? The Ash Crimson Saga. Yeah, the Ash Crimson Saga. And like he explains it in detail without like, you know, flooding you with like all the unnecessary information. It's just the key plots of KOF so that you don't get lost behind when like the new Verse Saga like comes in. But check those out. Like those are really fun. Like I did like a reaction on those and I was like, damn, that's really enlightening on the KOF series.
Yeah, I saw those too. They were really good. They're very comprehensive too.
Yeah, but yeah, like from like Capcom compared to like SNK, like as you said, like they're very like consistent. Like they kept like things like, you know, they keep like the core elements of like KOF from like each iteration, and after like some games, each like saga, for instance. But they still keep like the CAD characters because, you know, what's a fighting game without like any of those like GAD characters? Like even like Fatal Fury, right? The most like serious like from inception like fighting game there is, because it's Terry Bogard fighting like a criminal underlord, Geese Howard, and then in KOF games they're just like GAD characters, right? So like that's really fun. That's really funny about like a transition. So it's like, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do like stories for fighting, because like the most famous is going to be Mortal Kombat, right?
Especially exactly. After, like, yeah, that's gonna be our like our next topic, because like the only like few fighting games that have really done like story modes like kind of like well, right, are like the three fighting games that really like come into mind: Super Smash Brothers, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken. Specifically Tekken 7.
Yeah, Tekken. I would say I would even include Super Smash Brothers, because there's not much of a story there, except for like Subspace Emissary. Yeah,
well, that's like the one story, but that's like the story of Smash Brothers, right? And a lot of us growing up in like in the 2000s when Brawl was like coming out, sure, like the game is like broken, you know, Meta Knight shopping cart and all that jazz. Like, okay, sure.
I honestly never hated like Brawl. Like, I found out about people not liking it like after I left the military.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, well, why did you guys hate it? And they're like, the tripping. I was like, well, I mean, it's still better than playing Call of Duty, so.
That's true, yeah. But still, it's like, it's a funny thing that like came into my head. So that's really cool. Yeah, and like I found out about like Brawl like brokenness during like my college career, and like the Smash game that was like played at that time was like 3DS and Wii U. It was Smash 4. It was Smash 4, right? And
you were playing Smash 4 back in college.
Yeah, I was playing Smash 4 back in college, and like, yeah, Brawl is broken, but damn, man, I'm like maybe a new gen kid, right? But damn, I don't know. When like day one like Cloud and day one Bayonetta were hitting like Smash 4, I don't know, people were just like ripping their hair out, because like those are like Hamster's characters, because they could take you to the ceiling and all that shit. And like Bayonetta, the most toxic character in Smash 4 in Smash Brothers history, when she like came out, she was a pretty much like a degenerate character, and nobody liked Smash Brothers at that time until like Ultimate came and then reworked her.
I feel like that's a problem specifically with the Smash community when it comes to like those mechanics, because like,
yeah,
fighting game players have been dealing with like broken mechanics for like literally decades.
Exactly. You know, so. Right. My IRL friends group are just the hugest like Smash Brothers like fans, right? And they'll say that like, oh, Bayonetta's like busted. I'm like, Bayonetta's like broken. I'm like, me coming from like a fighting game background, I grew up with like Marvel vs. Capcom 1. I'm like, okay,
it's
really?
It's not as broken as like some of the other stuff that's in.
It's not as broken as like some of the other stuff. Like calm the F on like now. Come on.
Like,
now.
okay, yeah, it's broken. Like I'll acknowledge that it's broken.
Yeah, same here.
Also, did you grow up with Marvel vs. Capcom 2?
Yeah, did you grow up with Marvel vs. Capcom 2? Did you have to like deal with like fucking MSP in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and then get like sniped out by like Cable with his Hyper Viper beam? Like, no? Alright, man.
They're still finding broken stuff in MVC2 and like Capcom vs. SNK 2. Like they're still finding just some of the most dank broken stuff in there.
Yeah, right. Thankfully, because of like Justin Wong's like ratio mod tier list for that game, so that way you don't have to play just like the tiers of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but rather you play like the low tier cost characters.
Yeah, that's true.
True. Which made the game like really change it like dynamic, because throughout like the history of Marvel 2, a lot of those like low tier characters were not a lot of like had any like play time. But now with this like ratio mod system, it's like, okay, I can actually play Captain America and he can actually be useful. His Stars and Stripe assist, goated. His what else other character? Zangief, possibly a Juggernaut. Oh my god, Juggernaut, if he hits you hard.
I feel like they should bring back that ratio method thing that they use, because I didn't even know about this mod until like literally right now.
Oh
like,
yeah.
But I know, but they used it and they got it from Capcom vs. SNK 2. So I was like, this could be something that like people might want to do, you know, because it does add like a little bit of strategy to it. Like maybe you have one character you're really good with, and you just have to have like 2 more people to play in this game.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so let's how do you mess with that ratio, you know?
How do you mess with that ratio? Yeah. But anyway, back to like the fighting game stories, like Mortal Kombat, especially with the avant-garde of their cinematic stories back when Mortal Kombat versus DC was like coming out, right? And you know, this is kind of like, you know, we're getting like fighting games into like that cinematic like race, right? Because if anybody remembers, when Capcom was first like dishing out Street Fighter V, right? Street Fighter V was, you know, a bare bones fighting game. It was only meant for competitive players, and they only added single player elements like a cinematic Shadow Falls campaign. If everybody remembers that, oh my god. But yeah, like Capcom was literally trying to do like their copy paste element from Mortal Kombat, and it didn't succeed, right? And that's like Capcom was like learning their lessons like at the time, right? Like, why does Shadow Falls, like I played that, it was fine, but then I watched Max Dudes play through a Shadow Falls and like, oh my god,
I'm gonna be honest, you've never played it.
I never, yeah, thank god, Eskateerr, please do not touch that.
Never played it. And then when Max came out with his video about the story, I was like, well, now I'm kind of glad I didn't.
Kind of glad I did it. Yeah, right? Because yeah, Street Fighter V for Shadow Falls, like I said my playthrough, like it was kind of confident, and then I look back at Max Dude's like playthrough, it's like, okay, there's some like weird ass like robotic dialogue over here. It's just like it doesn't make any sense. And you know what I like told us like the worst fighting game like story? Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
That's true. And
yeah.
a big reason a lot of these fighting games don't have like good story is because, for one, they come out of beat 'em ups, right?
Yeah.
And beat 'em up games, their story plot elements come out of 80s action thrillers.
Exactly, right. Look at what was it? Streets of Rage, right? You have to face like a terrorist like organization or some shit. It's literally like directly like an action film, like a Steven Seagal like action film. You have to stop this drug lord. You have to stop this terrorist attack.
You could put Steven Seagal or Bruce Willis in it, and people wouldn't have even batted an eye, you know? So a lot of these story elements from like early fighting games, they come from 80s action movies. So it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love watching Die Hard every Christmas, but
the perfect Christmas film.
But only on Christmas, not the rest of the year.
Not the rest of the year. No. It's a sacred tradition.
And I feel like a lot, because people say now that Mortal Kombat has good story, but you guys don't. I mean, there was Deadly Alliance, there's Deception, there's Armageddon. All those are terrible. 4 wasn't that great either.
Oh yeah, oh my god.
And then they tried all these like different things, right? So they had mythologies, and they had like Mortal Kombat Gold. I know they were like supposed to be like backstories for like Sub-Zero and Scorpion through some of that stuff, but it was no one I've listened to, talked to has anything good to say about those games.
Oh, of course.
It's 1 through 3. No one talks about the rest, and then Mortal Kombat 9 came out.
And then Mortal Kombat 9 came out. Mortal Kombat 9 came out, but then also like MK versus DC, and they tried their first attempt at story mode. Oh my god, so, Scorpion like in a coma inside like the Batmobile with like Batman, and they must fight, and whole thing behind the MacGuffin of Mortal Kombat versus DC was like this giant like shit monster known as, you know, Dark Khan, Shao Kahn and Dark Khan. Like, oh my god.
I mean, that was growing pains, and that felt like they ripped it out of, like, they ripped story elements out of like comic books from the 90s, because like the 90s did a lot of that, right? Like they did a lot of crossovers, and then like, I mean, there's like a whole line of comics where like they mashed DC and Marvel characters together. And some of them are cool, and some of them are very questionable.
Holy shit. But, I did not know that.
Yeah, they ripped that straight from like 90s comics. Because you know how like 90s comics was all about clones, more clones, big muscles, trying to get as many people on one page as possible. It was what it was for the time. It worked for some things. It did not work for a lot of other things. And I feel like for what they tried to do with DC versus, you know, MK or MK versus DC, whatever, it was fine because I played it. You know, I played it back in the day, and
Right.
I thought it was okay. But I could also feel that was like, you know, if they keep trying to do the same story elements, people are going to laugh at them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point, because like after like MK versus DC, they kind of really like perfected themselves a lot through like MK9, through Mortal Kombat X storyline, through Injustice, through MK11, and you can definitely like tell that like NetherRealm has been like polishing up cinematic stories, and they are like masters of their craft. And that's like where I feel like I don't think any other fighting game like should try to like copy and paste it over to their own. Capcom did. Yeah. Look how well they turned out with that. So, but Mortal Kombat is like, you know, the kind of master, the grandmaster of like cinematic story modes, and they have it like to like a T. Sure, there are like questionable story modes at the time, but like this is what I always say, like especially after like I did my editing of a Bayonetta review, right? I did like a Bayonetta 3 review, and it's going to be up on the channel, and it's, you know, fighting game lore, especially like fighting game lore, since we're like talking about it, is fine, right? But, you know, it all depends on like a good narration. That's one. And two is that, you know, there can be like, you know, dudes out there that really love like absolute 100% like lore, but you know, fighting game lore is like generally, you know, silly. It's wacky, right? Because, you know, there's the serious storyline, and then there's like the gaggy like storyline, which we've been like talking about, right? You see like Li Xiaolong's like ending, and you have like Heihachi in like in a goddamn like speedo, and he's about to like explode, right? Like that's literally like hokey like campiness, right? And you know
who I think does it pretty well is Melty Blade. Because you know it's adapted from an actual novel, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, like a series of novels. But like if you play like especially now with like that Neko Cat thing, like it is very silly. So
yeah,
it's like very tongue in cheek. Like, oh, this thing is supposed to like be able to like end worlds and stuff, but it looks like an anime cat.
It looks like an anime cat. Yeah, it's there as like a joke character. That's all it like really is, right? And you know, that's fine, right? We like our like video games, especially like in our fighting games, a little bit of like levity. We shouldn't have to like seriously like attach our like persona to this like fighting game, or at least like their character background and like lore, right? The biggest example that like I can think of with like fighting game lore in that like sense is like Guilty Gear.
Oh
right?
Yeah.
Right, like Guilty Gear. Guilty Gear is like super like goddamn like convoluted to a T. Right, like it's like, yeah, we saw the tree. Oh my god, and especially on Wooly's like videos and all that shit. Oh my god, right? I can see Eskateerr like rolling his eyes, like, like, jeez, man. This is where like say that like, you know, fighting game like lore or like characters, like you shouldn't like get up into like lore about it, because you know it is like a video game, and more in this sense specifically, it is a fighting game. And what do? You pick up a character and then you play online. That's like the whole motif of like fighting games. You play like against with like other people. Story mode is like, it's fine though, but like if it can be done well, like a Mortal Kombat, but like lore and like all that stuff, you don't really have to think about it like. Yeah, Guilty Gear is like very complicated, like, and that's like the grander like picture with like fighting game lore is like, don't attach yourself to like, not just like in fighting game like lore, but any like video game lore, because you know, like you could be like a one guy who like talks out of his own ass like about like saying Bayonetta 3 is like a total disappointment, and like I had to hear like the hash end of him like 3 times. One as one time just to listen to him, then second time on reaction, and then third time on like on editing, and like he says some like randomly stupid shit. I'm like, oh my god.
You have more patience than me, because I'm not doing that. I'll just tell him like, hey man, I grew up with like 90s and 80s cartoons. Like, I'm just glad I have a story.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm glad I have a story. Yeah, but that's like fighting game lore. And that's like also also like to bring in my topic, like action game lore in a nutshell, right? They're there for like cool, like silly fun. It's interesting to have like lore to keep like information in your head, but like don't make it like a big thing about like lore. Like
don't overthink it. Just don't overthink. Don't Michael Bay the thing.
Don't Michael Bay the thing. Oh my god, don't Michael Bay Transformers the thing by giving all of like the junk bots like testicles on them. Like just don't do that.
Well, that guy has to be hated by now. Like everybody considers him to be like just the defiler of their childhood. Like,
oh my god, absolutely, right? I mean, I have all 3 of like the Transformers movies in my like shelf, like pointed at like my left, not like at Eskateerr, right? He doesn't have them, but I have them. I have all 3 movies.
Don't get me wrong, I got both of the Ninja Turtles Michael Bay movies. I don't completely hate them.
Yeah, they're passable, fun, like popcorn times. Do you care about the story? A little bit, because it's a little bit of like, wait, what? Why aren't they like? Why is Master Splinter like isn't like Master Splinter from the show? Why is he like that? Oh, okay, I see. It's just a popcorn movie. All right, I'll eat this popcorn. Next.
All the turtles are bulletproof for some reason.
Yeah, all the turtles are bulletproof. Like what? Yeah, but
apparently their shells can deflect bullets too. So
their shells can deflect bullets. Oh my god, that's crazy. Oh yeah, but yeah, we talked about like fighting game lore, how it can be like asinine at times, but now we like talk about fighting game like currently right now, and we were just like touching upon MK11. So let's like dive deep into that, like with the cinematic like story modes, right? Especially we got to include like some of the bad ones, like MK versus DC, right? Like,
so I think with MK10, MK11, I actually think those are stronger than Injustice. That's just me personally, because like Injustice is a great game. It's a great story, but also Superman Goes Bad has been done like a lot of times.
Yeah, and there's like an actual fucking comic series about like Superman being like a full-on like Nazi.
Yep. And then there's Red Sun Superman. There's a bunch of them, you know, Ultraman and stuff like that. So like, I feel like they did Injustice as a way to like sort of like tread water, you know, like they really learned their lesson with DC versus MK, and they're like, okay, we can't just go like super silly off the wall. Like we gotta have something. So they did Injustice. People wanted Injustice 2, so they did Injustice 2. But I feel like that's where they really cut their teeth for the story of MK, because everybody, like, even people that I don't know about that, or people that I do know about that don't play fighting games, like they're waiting on the story for MK12.
Oh yeah, right. And there have been like reports that they're gonna do like an MK like 9 like soft reboot, like go back to like the beginning, but like keep like, I don't know, like there's some like weird like rumors and like theories about that for MK12.
I feel like the reboot thing is gonna happen, but I feel like it's not going to like it's not gonna like reboot everything, because like comic books do the same thing, right? They do soft reboots all the time. Like DC does hard reboots where they're like, okay, this is another universe now. Like this is called something else.
Like what was it? Like what was it, Eskateerr, like in comic books? I'm actually like curious, right? Was it like
they did New 52?
Yeah, New 52, that one. That was like the hated one amongst like DC fans.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they hated it. And then the one that came after it, they hated that too. But then once they did Rebirth, that's when everybody was like, okay, this is fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I get you like your point. Yeah, that actually like makes sense. Like Injustice like storyline is like there to like tread the water, because like one, it actually comes from like a comic book like material of a storyline is specifically in Injustice with like
so they already have lore to go off of too, so they don't have to like come up with something new.
They don't have to come up with something new, yeah. But like with MK, like it's really like you have to be careful of like how you tell like the storyline for MK, because you know, as you said, was like the MK like PS2 games like Deadly Alliance, Armageddon, and then even like MK like 1 through 2, like it was very like archaic, because at that time we didn't have like a cinematic story mode, and now we do with these like NetherRealm avant-garde of fighting game cinematic story modes, right? And so we have like MK9, which is like a reboot, and then they did like that reboot to pave the way for MK10, and then we have like MK11, which is kind of like, you know, they're like mwah, like their chef's kiss of like how characters like look, how characters actually like feel. Gameplay is like honestly, but MK like 11 really like shines well on like, you know, the character like facial features. Like this is their best like looking Mortal Kombat ever, and of course, you know, their story modes, right? Cinematic story mode. MK11 like Aftermath, okay, sure, they killed my boy Kotal Khan. I will not give them respect for that, right? That's my boy. That's like blue skin Namor over there. How dare you chop off this man's head?
Yeah, I wasn't good with killing off Kotal Khan either. I thought like when they introduced him in the first time, I was like, oh, this is a really good like original character for this era of Mortal Kombat. And then they kill him, and I was like, that was probably a dumb mistake.
That was probably a dumb mistake. I wish he like come back again, right? Because, you know, Kotal Khan, like off topic, his playstyle is like either like 3 variations: Blood God, War God, or Sun God. And like I like Blood God and War God a little bit more because like one is like his damage buff like totems when it comes off the ground, and then his Sun God where he's like his just this crazy ass like hybrid grappler. He like grabs you by the neck and is like on your knees, and then he like back rakes you, and then the sun like melts the opponent off. I'm like, yo, damn, this is silly, but like I like this, man. I like this hybrid grappler shit.
I mean, they came out with Apocalypto. I mean, Kotal Khan's not worse than Apocalypto, so. That a whole movie revolving around Kotal Khan would probably be a little bit better than Apocalypto.
Oh yeah, 100%. That would be like a movie. I can't wait. Mortal Kombat 2 for the movie. Add Kotal Khan, please. Thank you. But that's like another thing, right? We should like talk about that, like fighting game like adaptations like into like movies, right? Because those are also like stories as well.
I would probably start again at Mortal Kombat because like that's the most famous movie, right? Like
yeah.
Video game, like fighting game movies, the original Mortal Kombat. That was done like really well, but then they didn't plan for a sequel, and then they had a sequel, and the sequel was terrible.
And the sequel was terrible. What was the subtitle called? Like Annihilation?
Yeah, it was Annihilation.
Yeah, it was Annihilation.
And then Street Fighter the movie, that's. I mean, even when it came out, when I was a kid and it came out, I was like, it's terrible.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't even know if this is supposed to be the lore of the movie, like the video game, but like it definitely doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, which Street Fighter movie, Eskateerr?
There's only, I mean, none of the animated ones. All the animated ones are usually pretty good, but I'm talking about like the live action ones.
Oh. I almost like forgot that in my mind, then I had to remember it back again, and then like, oh, I have to forget about it. No, I can't remember this movie.
And then they adapted that into a game.
Oh jeez.
Bonkers. And then they tried to like basically scale down that game, and then it was terrible.
Oh my god, Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li, man, what a crazy thing.
Yeah, well, I'm not even talking about The Legend of Chun-Li. I'm not like, I never saw that.
Oh, the movie, right? I don't know, like that one was kind of okay, only because of like its campiness, right? Raul Julia's Bison. For me, it was too.
Raul Julia's Bison does save the movie. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
But even when I was a kid, Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile was just terrible.
That's another like point, because like fighting game like movies are also like adaptations of story modes, right? Even though like they can be like good when they want to be. Hold on a sec. Yeah, mommy.
I made this thing.
What did you make, mommy? You made a pancake for me? Thank you so much. And some, what is that?
Milk.
Is that chocolate milk? Oh my god, thank you, mommy.
Give me that.
I'll give you the cup. Thank you.
You didn't finish it?
I'll finish my papaya, don't worry. And I'll finish my apples too, don't worry. Don't worry, I'm good.
Don't worry, my mom does the same thing to me in the morning.
My mom does the same thing? Oh, man. Yeah.
I'm 33 and she's like, you gotta eat. I was like, I'll eat later. She's like, no, you're gonna eat now.
You're gonna eat now. That's funny. I'm keeping that in the Khaiza Dojo. That'll be some fun levity shit. But yeah, right, like fighting game like movies also have like a little bit of like fleshness of like story. They can be like kind of like accurate, and like the best one would be like Mortal Kombat, right? Because again, Mortal Kombat just like hits those notes of like that cinematic story, albeit, you know, granted.
Did you remember that they had a Tekken movie?
Bruh.
Yeah,
I remember
you forgot
watching.
about it.
I
You
remember.
forgot about it.
I remember watching that on like DirecTV when I had like cable, and I think it was like shown off on like Showtime or like Cinema Max. There was like a Tekken movie, and it's like Jin confronts like Christy out of like a shower scene, and I'm like, okay, that's where I stopped. And then I saw like all the other characters, like, wait, like the guy who played Shang Tsung plays fucking Heihachi. I'm like, huh. First of all, Shang Tsung is Shang Tsung, right? He fits that character, but like a real life fucking Heihachi, I'm like, yo, this man.
I mean, I feel bad, right? Because like, who could fill Heihachi's shoes? Like that guy's just like, he's almost like a force of nature. He's almost like Akuma, right?
Yeah, and he's like an anime character. Just like his visuals alone, his head alone is like, who can rock that like that two like hair piece on his head, right?
But I mean, you have to try, and it didn't really feel like they tried.
It doesn't feel like that they tried. Yeah, exactly. It's like, what the hell like happened? And then, oh yeah, there was also another fighting game movie, and that was the Dead or Alive movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm not watching that. Yeah, it was alright. I got to like first half of that movie, and even then, I still I forgot what just happened.
Like the first time I heard the name Dead or Alive, it wasn't a fighting game because you know I grew up with like those old school ones. Mm-hmm. I remember it coming out for like the original Xbox, but it was the volleyball game.
Oh,
like,
the DOA Extreme games, yeah. Oh my god.
I guess they do this now, so
that was like on like their gamer like skeevy like magazines, or like at the time when X-Play was like coming out, it's like get ready to be hyped up and horny, guys. It's DOA Extreme. You get to see Tina Armstrong in a Venus bikini. Oh yeah.
That was the first time I remember like looking at that. I was like, and then someone later on told me, like just recently too, they're like, those are fighting games. I was like, they're fighting games? They're like, yeah, they're old too. Yeah. And I was like, how old? And they're like, they came before the volleyball games. I was like, oh god, I came on the tail end then.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like fighting game movies are also like a good contender, and like yeah, Mortal Kombat is like the best one to come out of those like fighting game movies, because yeah, it's just something about like Mortal Kombat that really like fleshes out like their overall compensing story to like a unified like thing.
Even the last one was really good. It was like there was a lot to complain about it, but when I saw it in theaters, I was like, this isn't bad.
Yeah,
like I'd watch a sequel to this.
Yeah, I watched it like a sequel to that. Yeah, there's a lot of like love and hate with like the new Mortal Kombat movie, because you know, comparatively speaking to the 1999 movie of Mortal Kombat, right? The 1999 Mortal Kombat movie was like really structured well. Like you could follow the movie from like point A to point B. It had a good narration. Mortal Kombat 2021 was just all just like fan favorite lore like set pieces about like Mortal Kombat, but it wasn't, you know, properly fleshed out well.
I mean, to be fair though, like the original Mortal Kombat, because I remember like the whole thing, all of that movie, like there were still a lot of gang beats. Yeah,
there was still a lot of fun.
I mean, Johnny Cage, like they put in Johnny Cage's nut punch to like Goro, like that became canon because of the movie, but like it's not because it's serious. It's not. I mean, you could take that out and it'd still be like the same Mortal Kombat movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it wouldn't be the same Mortal Kombat movie.
So it wouldn't be the same Mortal Kombat, but all of like those like little details that Mortal Kombat is really like known for. Their fatalities, their hope, their somewhat like serious like plot lines, you know, like all that shit. But fighting game like movies are really like a good contender. And like we talk about like the movies, but back to like, you know, MK with like their cinematic like story modes, right? I want to like ask this for like, you know, both of us, Eskateerr, you and I, right? It's like, we did talk about a little bit with like Capcom with their cinematic story modes, and look at how like they failed, right? But with Mortal Kombat, and like another company that did this, it was Bandai Namco with Tekken 7. And Tekken 7's like grand like story mode, their cinematic story mode was kind of like pretty fire, right? Just like strictly following the Mishima like bloodline, or the blood feud between Heihachi and Kazuya, right? Like,
I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't play the Tekken 7 storyline because I'm still that old school.
yeah.
But I did play some of it. And it was pretty good for the little bit that I felt like I was getting like a sense of lore out of it. I feel like if you're going to do cinematic stuff, you shouldn't do it like kind of like what you refer to, like don't do it just because another company's doing it.
Exactly.
If you're not good at it, like just try to like just do it gradually, you know. But like I liked Tekken 7's storyline when I first started out, because like it was starting to give me like a sense of lore out of it. And the MK11 one and MK10, I felt the same thing. Like I felt like there was like, okay, they're trying to naturally progress this story, you know, like the fights are supposed to happen naturally and, you know, stuff like that.
Exactly.
I feel like if you're gonna do cinematic stuff, like you have to have like some sort of like natural progression to it.
Yeah. And this is where I want to bring up like a point for like fighting games like cinematic stories, right? Like MK had like a cinematic story where like the fights were like naturally like there, right? Like all of like the fights had like a natural like change of pace, but also keeping like the continuity that is like Mortal Kombat. And in another example, which we brought up, which was Tekken, right? You can like follow up on like Tekken because like they have this like unique theme where like the fights like instantly like happen and you have to be ready for like the next battle, no pun intended. But yeah, like Tekken is all about like the quick like pace like fighting. A fight could like happen like anywhere, and that was like their.
That's great. That's fine, and that works for them. You know, they found a style that works for them, and that's great.
Yeah, and so like if we were to like put like a fighting game like cinematic story mode, what would be like, you know, their like core identity? Like if we were to like tackle again like Capcom with their cinematic stories, you know, what would there be their like one trick like pony in a good sense? What would like how would they do it and like tackle it?
That's hard. It's a little tough to say. I don't know, honestly. Maybe I would probably, if I had to like really guess, I would probably say like one, have better voice actors. It's gonna be number one.
And pay them well too. That's another thing.
Pay them well too. So have better voice acting, and like if they want to do a story for Capcom, they need to revisit all the games.
Yeah.
And, like let's see, and before like they start a new story, don't just do like a reboot, because for one, our other games already done it, and they're gonna say that you're copying it. So just go over like all the lore that you have and see what kind of story you can even do. You know, would you want to do like something in between certain games? Do you want to progress like the mainline story? Do you want to do side stories? Like, it's better if they just take their time to see what kind of story they can actually do. Because I'm kind of scared about the Street Fighter 6 story. I'll be honest.
Wow, really? You're kind of scared about Street Fighter 6?
I'm a little because like Capcom doesn't have a good track record for like their storylines, so it's like, is the fandom really gonna like this story? Like, they've been showing off mostly like not story elements. They've been showing off all the other stuff, right? So
right.
It's like
all the gameplay, all the accessibility, yeah, all that shit.
And that's gonna propel Street Fighter 6 by like, you know, it's gonna make them like bank and money.
It's gonna give them like massive amount of units just because of how like casual friendly Street Fighter really is, you know.
Yeah, and then they tried to make it really casual friendly, but in the back of my head, I'm just thinking like, what's the story gonna be like? Where's it gonna fit? What are they gonna do? Luke is still really hated in Street Fighter 5.
Oh yeah.
Even though like he doesn't feel like he's gonna be that bad in Street Fighter 6, but like he's still gonna be like super hated. Like, did they take that into account or something?
Yeah, which is what I was gonna say. Like, I kind of feel like optimistic for like Street Fighter 6, only because like, you know, I'm in like that little bubble where like everything about Street Fighter 6 is like really great. Like, it's super like cool. You know, they even added like a control option. I don't know. I think
they have that. They have three. They have three.
Yeah, they have like three. They have this like new control option. You definitely must have heard of this, Eskateerr, right? The dynamic control scheme. Oh my god.
the dynamic control scheme, the classic control scheme, and I forgot what the other one's called.
The other one was modern control scheme.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, modern.
Yeah, so you have like 3 classic control schemes. But like as in terms of like story for Street Fighter 6, right? Of course, yes, they are like giving us like so much casual approach, like with their like quote unquote story mode with like their world tour, which is a nice like little breath of fresh air. Like no fighting game has like done like a, you know, what was it, like a third person perspective, like create your like your own character and then you explore like the world of Street Fighter. You know, to me that feels like that's what like Street Fighter is.
Yeah, and I feel like this is actually the actual natural progression for Capcom is doing like an open world thing.
Yeah,
they got so much lore, they got so many characters. It's like don't do like a classic like Street Fighter game. Like make it open world. Don't try to like progress that much and try to get fans to like sort of do it themselves.
Yeah, and that's also true. That's also true, but also in the sense that like, you know, Street Fighter's like core is like back in like the good old days of like Street Fighter 2 and like what and like how is the Street Fighter 2 arcade, like back to the original like topic we were talking about for arcade ladders. You pick a character and then you travel around the world fighting different characters of set like state. And like I feel like World Tour is like the perfect embodiment of like the core like emphasis of like Street Fighter 6, right? You pick a character, or in this sense, right, which is very good, you are the Street Fighter. You are the Street Fighter, you are going around to different like countries and then you're learning from these like masters, possibly like fighting them, but you get to learn like these different like styles of play. And I feel like that's like, man, Street Fighter is doing so well, just like respect, not only like appeasing to like the casual audience with all of their control schemes and all of their gameplay and whatnot, but also respecting what is Street Fighter. What is a Street Fighter to like, you know, my little niece or like something like that. Because, you know, we can talk about Street Fighter, we're pretty much FG heads, but can I explain like Street Fighter to like my or your like niece, for instance, Eskateerr? No, like it's very ingrained hardcore, you know?
And then halfway through, someone's gonna be like, just watch the movie. And it's like, well, that's one, that's old, and two, like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly, right? You could watch like some of the old Street Fighter movies, but you know, those are like old movies. We want to see something that's like new, and especially for kids, right? Especially for our younger kids, everything is like, we want to see something that's like new. We don't have a certain love or attachment that's like old or something like that.
No, I feel that, yeah. And honestly, now that you bring it up, World Tour does give me a lot of hope for Street Fighter 6. Like, I still got that like little thing in the back of my head. It's like, please don't screw this up, man.
Yeah, please don't like screw this up. Yeah, there's a lot of like hope riding on this one. This feels like the ultimate like fighting game for Capcom that is like, you know, their make or break. And I really hope that like Capcom will break for this like game, because if Street Fighter 6 sells, look what will happen with like the avant-garde of like Capcom fighting games that they stored in their closet, right?
It'll explode. We
could potentially bring back, fingers crossed, a Marvel vs. Capcom 4, right? Oh man.
A lot of people have even less hope about a Marvel vs. Capcom 4.
Yeah, I would always get like joking like chat messages whenever I open up a stream. It's like, yo, is there Marvel vs. Capcom 4? I would have to practically say like, sadly no. It's just like, oh, that's okay, and then they leave. I'm like, okay, sure, that's fine. I mean, I don't believe it too. I could hope for like a miracle, but like practically I don't see it happening.
They're hunting. It's just because they're hunting. They're hunting for any news that they think that might give them like a little bit of hope about Marvel vs. Capcom 4.
Yeah, granted, I'm one of them. I got my Spider-Man Venom shirt, okay? I am like certainly hoping for hope, okay? I need something that will make me happy. You know?
I mean, I'd play it day one too, but I mean, I already know how Disney and Marvel work, so
yeah.
I really doubt it, dude.
I really doubt it, yeah. But that's like, yeah, that's true.
Miracles can happen.
Yeah, miracles can happen. Yeah, sorry. Miracles can happen, exactly. But we talked about like Capcom. What about like other companies trying to like adapt their like core identity for cinematic story mode? Like what about SNK? What about like Arc System Works, you know? All these other like companies that they could certainly like do something about cinematic story mode? Not like a copy and paste, but like what would be like if they were to approach the big encompassing story, the lore of their own respective franchise? How would they like tackle it, you know?
I think for Arc System, they should probably just keep doing what they do. I mean, they have lore for Guilty Gear that's so convoluted that you need to have like a genetic tree to like look at it.
But how they like
And people
approach
still
it?
and people still love it, you know. So it's like, I think that's fine. But with Arc System, I feel like it's more. It should be less is more now. Like they have a lot of titles that have like a lot of lore to them already. So now that they have everything like sort of done, like maybe just like less is more, you know, just little bit by little bit. Because I tried playing Guilty Gear Strive's story mode, and it's a lot of cutscenes.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna like bring up, right? Because how they approach like their cinematic story mode is like it's just one big movie. All you do is just press X on a controller.
Yeah,
that's really it. You don't necessarily do.
I'm not
playing.
here for the movie, and like I get what they're trying to do. Like they're trying to address all the lore concerns that fans have, but it's like, look, man, this is my first Guilty Gear game. Give me fights.
Yeah, like give me fights, right? I'm not here to like sit down and watch like an anime version. Well, Guilty Gear is an anime fighter, but I could just watch that on like GoGo Anime or like any of the other anime sites to get like my anime fix. Why do I have to sit down in a video game and watch like a glorified like cutscene that goes on for like 2 hours long?
2 hours, and like if I wanted to watch like anime drama, like I'll just watch Gundam.
I think like for Arc System works, yes, less is more, and like just give me something to like fight, right? Like if we were to combine our 2 points, it's like, you know, give good amount of like cutscenes, but also like make it like a fighting game, right? Like it's not just like the online, but also like lore. Albeit we have like tackled that subject before, but like lore is also important, right? And
yeah,
like
it is. It's true.
Lore's
I
also
think SNK proves that too. It's like
SNK, right?
You need to have like the like they've been posting on just their like the goodness of how well their gameplay is for like way too long.
Yeah.
People really like KOF 15, but it's, you know, they look at it, they're like, where's the story?
Exactly.
Like,
where is the story, right? And that's like the kind of thing that like draws people into like the King of Fighters like storyline is that it's not like the storyline, because the storyline comes after. What comes like first is because KOF's natural like thing that draws like newcomers in is how characters like look.
Yeah, that's true.
And like SNK really like hones down like, wow, Kyo Kusanagi looks really fucking cool. This is like Terry Bogard, or I'm sorry for all the new people watching, that's Pokemon Trainer with a hat.
and then like even before that, like KOF 14, like I don't even know if it had much of a story.
No, it didn't. It just had like the classic archaic arcade ladder. Just introduced like new characters, and that was really it. Yeah,
and it was fine for what it was, but the fact that their graphics were so like below the expectations for like a lot of fans.
Yeah. Oh my god, KOF 14 like graphics visually, that was like a lot of fighting games had like this like trademark of like, outside of like maybe Mortal Kombat and Injustice, but yeah, like fighting games, especially for like Capcom and SNK, where they were just like going into like the Unreal Engine, it's like, man, characters look kind of like whack.
Yeah, they were pretty bad, dude. And I got it like a while ago too, like before like KOF 15 came out, and I mean I really loved it, but the graphics just kept taking me back, and I just couldn't deal with it, man. It
really is like KOF 15 is like the first like MVCI, like in the sense that MVCI had trash ass visuals, but the gameplay is pretty fire.
That's true. Because I also have MVCI on a system somewhere, and the gameplay is really, really good, but the graphics, I mean, they're not there now.
Yeah, they're not there now.
No.
Exactly. No, it lost. MVCI is a whole nother different like mess. Like it lost 90% of like its identity and was trying to like shove in like the MCU likeness because that was like the hip new thing going on with the general crowd, right? What's the next big thread? What's like Thanos doing here? We gotta have Thanos here. We can't have like all these Joe Schmoes from Capcom anymore.
And that comes back to like where people think you're copying like another game or another thing, you know? Like a lot of people thought MCI was just kind of like, oh look, they made Avengers the movie, the game, and it's like this is supposed to be something different. But I mean, as long as you play the game, that's fine. But even then, like a lot of those casual players, like they saw the graphics and they were like, I could just watch Avengers.
I could just watch Avengers, yeah. And like speaking of which, well, like Marvel vs. Capcom, like if we were to like back on like that high pedestal of like that miracle can happen of an MVC4, I think they shouldn't have like a cinematic story mode to begin with for Marvel vs. Capcom.
I actually really agree. I think they should go somewhere like graphics wise. I feel like they should go past MVC2 and like do something between like MVC2 and MVC3 like graphics wise. Yeah. Maybe like a little bit more like comic booky, but like less cell shading and try to make it feel more like pixel art.
Exactly.
And like just put them together, just fight.
Just put them together, just fight. Because like at the end of the day, Marvel vs. Capcom is a guest like fighting game. You have guests from the Marvel side, you have guests from the Capcom side.
And I feel like if they want to do like a story mode for MVC4, they should just continue MVC2 with MVC3 elements. That's
right.
All you have to do. That's all you have to do.
Right, because like that was like the thing back in like MVC2, you did not have any like character specific endings for MVC2 like in MVC1, but you had like this grand arcing like villain called like Abyss, and you just had to beat him, and then you see like the end credits, and then you see all the designs by Bengus, all of his like hand drawn like stuff, just Capcom characters interacting with Marvel characters, and I feel
all you have to say is Galactus 8 Abyss.
Galactus 8 Abyss, yeah.
Galactus 8 Abyss turned into something new, and now here's your story.
Exact. Yeah, that. Damn, MCU, are you hearing this? Yeah, you should probably write this down.
Not for your movies, just for MVC4.
Just for MVC4, yeah, exactly. But yeah, right, like I feel like that's what should like happen. If they were to like, let's say like God forbid, they mold the MCU-ness into like a potential Marvel vs. Capcom 4. If they were to like do that, have like character interactions, which is what they did for like MVCI, but don't make them like, you know, maybe like campy. Or maybe they do make them campy, right? Just don't make them sound like robots. Like that's the thing.
For one, like that should be like rule number one. Don't do your voice acting like it's robotic.
Exactly.
And then two, it's like just make Galactus eat Abyss, all right? Make Galactus eat Abyss, and then you can revolve like a whole story around how that messed up 2 universes or something, and now you gotta fix everything then.
The thing is, like, MVCI kind of like did that, like not the Galactus 8 Abyss thing, but it was like, you know, Ultron merged with like Sigma and then became like Ultron Sigma, and then
I actually don't think the base version of like the MVCI storyline was bad. Like I feel like that was like, okay, that feels like a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 story, right? Like like the base of it, but like the presentation was just so off that like they ruined it for like a long time on like MVC's like story front.
Exactly, right, and that was like the front cover. It was like the demo, and you can't really like do anything with MVCI until you like actually had to like play the game. It was like, yeah. I mean, I always say this on my stream, Eskateerr. I've talked about the ass end of MVCI. I know like the full history, well, quote unquote full history, and like I've become like a fucking like Islamic Molana, right? I've been preaching this game's history for years to years, and this is like I'm done with this. If you want to talk about this story, you could talk to me, but like damn, I know like little bits of everything, and talking about it just makes me feel sad.
That's how I feel about Ninja Turtle. I used to try to tell people like, hey, try the comics, but it's like you know what? If you wanted to really read the comics, you would have done it by now.
Yeah, you would have done it by now, exactly. But yeah, that would have been like, that's like our take on like a Marvel cinematic like story, right? Or if for Marvel vs. Capcom 4, we did touch about like SNK, or we didn't like have like a full on like solution for that, did we?
I don't think there is one. I think I feel like they're. I feel like they do have a plan for SNK's like story stuff, because remember in KOF 15 like there wasn't much of a story.
Yeah.
But they teased like something bigger, you know? So I feel like there's not really like a resolution right now, but there will be in the future. I feel like because SNK has been through a lot, right? Like you've probably seen some of the like the history behind it and stuff like that. It's been through a lot.
It's been through a lot, yeah. Especially like in the early 2000s when like SNK filed for bankruptcy, and then they got like that money back, and look where they are now. They're like
and then they got
like the biggest like contenders.
And then they had a president who was like, let's do pachinko machines.
Pachinko machines, and then they got bought out by a Saudi Arabian company for like oil or some shit. I'm like,
Well, they're still like, I think the majority control is still controlled by. So it's a Saudi prince. He bought it out, and the guy has horrible human rights records. So like, get that out of the way. Yeah, get that out of the way. But once you look into like him as like a person, he really likes video games.
Wow.
And a lot of SNK games are popular in like countries outside of the United States. Like
of course,
yeah. Yeah, all Latin America, and I'm guessing now like the Middle East. Like I guess they have like a passion for SNK too. So
yeah,
I feel like it was a business move on his part.
It was a business move, yeah. But I feel like they can like SNK can improve on like their story elements. Like the characters are cool enough. The story is like motivating you to like get into like SNK. But maybe like I don't know, a cinematic story mode would not be like the best approach for them.
I don't think so either.
I
feel like they feel the same way, and they're trying to find like a style that would be like a natural thing for them.
I feel that, yeah. And we'll kind of like wrap up like this like fighting game story mode on like maybe like the future of like fighting games. We talked about like other companies specifically, but like what about like other fighting games?
I would say the future of fighting games is gonna be based off of whatever Street Fighter 6 will be good at.
Yeah.
Especially that open tour mode.
Especially for that open tour mode, yeah. And there's going to be like new horizons of other like fighting games like in the future, right? Not just like in Street Fighter, but of course the other big fighting game that also got announced was Tekken 8. Yeah, well, you can't wait. Fans are waiting like in anticipation. Like the first like cinematic trailer of Tekken 8 was like Jin beating up Kazuya. Yeah, it exploded, right? Like Devil Jin beating up like Kaz and like in a hurricane ass like fucking like island is like we're gonna see the conclusion of the Mishima bloodline family, and like that's like lore, right? That's like, man, we can't wait for this shit to like go down, because we talked about this before, right? Tekken 7 is like get ready for the instantaneous like fight, and they've always had like hype as fuck fights going on with like epic as fuck like music.
I feel like Tekken 8 is going to be like, this is what you think like 80s action movies actually are in your head, but better.
This is like a DBZ fight like coming to like full fruition.
Yeah. They're like this is what an 80s action movie would be like if there was anime elements in it, and also better. Yeah, true. Also better, right? Yeah, like that's the thing. Like you have like the world is going to end in 5 minutes, Jin Kazama, you better do the finishing blow. In 2 hours.
In 2 hours or something, right? But we also forgot to like talk about SNK again, right? My bad for anybody like watching, because we talked about KOF 15, but also like the future, because we forgot about this one important for the potential Fatal Fury new Garo game like coming out. And
See, that's where I think SNK is going to. I feel like that's where they're testing out a lot of new elements.
Yeah, right.
So I feel like KOF 14 was like, all right, we messed up, and they're like, all right, let's do KOF 15 to like recoup like our image and like some of the money from KOF 14. And now they're gonna try to test out some new stuff with the new Fatal Fury.
Yeah, right. Especially on how like Oda has been like promising us that like Oda is the man that left SNK like sometime around like the 2000s, but then he came back to SNK just to finish up Garo or the Fatal Fury storyline. And he's been saying like high hopes and like during like SNK interviews that like we're gonna make Fatal Fury like we're gonna make Fatal Fury like to appease like old fans who love like the Fatal Fury series, but also make it entertaining for new fans who are new to the series.
That sounds like the PR stuff that Street Fighter 6 was talking about, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, it's working for them. It's sure working for Capcom now, so I'm really hoping that it's gonna work for SNK too.
Really hoping that's going to be working for SNK. Just like that one little thing that like popped up in my head. I was like, oh wait, Fatal Fury, right?
No,
oh,
I forgot about it. Yeah.
It's been
every
a long
time it comes
time.
up, I just get excited again. I was like, oh shit, that's right. They're doing that again.
They're doing that again, exactly. Well, we've been clocked in for like almost an hour and a half, so I feel like we should like close out. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching us, me and Eskateerr, right? Where we talk about fighting games, we love fighting games, and this is like one of our passionate things to like talk about. Albeit, you know, we have our own respective topics. Eskateerr for TMNT, I was like Power Rangers, right? Super Sentai stuff, but we both unanimously love fighting games, and we just want to see like fighting games, you know, outside of like, you know, the fighting game like community and their like headassery, their exclusivity, but we just want like fighting games to like reach out to like newer fans and like also like be enlightened at like, you know, the different like topics and conversations that to be had about fighting games, you know.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we're gonna be closing out. Eskateerr, anything you wanna where can people like find you on like in social medias and whatnot? I know you're like a little bit stricter on that, but if you don't mind.
So no, I don't mind. So Twitter, it's private now, but I mean, if you're not a bot, I'll probably accept you anyway, and I'll probably follow you back. It's Eskateerr FGC. Instagram, I do for poetry, so it's Eskateerr_poetry.
Oh, you should also. I saw your latest poem about Tommy Oliver.
Yeah.
You should send that over to like my Discord, right? Remember that poetry
sure.
section?
Oh, actually, I forgot about that. I'll do that probably pretty soon.
Yeah.
Sure. Those are the two main ones. Everything else kind of flows from there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a Facebook page, but you know, it's mostly connected to the Instagram. So.
Right. Okay. And as for me, you can follow me on Twitter with at khaizakahn. You can follow my you can subscribe to my two YouTube channels, Khaiza and Khaiza_plays. I also have an Instagram. I also have a TikTok to make really funny shit. Come watch me do like a comment writer thing, or like me and my boy It's Amazing play some Rumbleverse from time to time. A lot of fun stuff.
I would be more on TikTok, but it freezes every time that I try to watch something on there.
Oh man.
Yeah,
why does it freeze?
I don't know.
Oh jeez. As my mom would say, technology is like a curse for me, so I'll just say it's that.
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. But anyway, yeah, thank you, Eskateerr. Thank you to all the people watching. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.